Actually, I'll start some announcements first. One, I want to congratulate Chief Clayton Keith and Officer Phil Sinagra. Phil did most of the work, put in for a $30,000 grant for cameras for our officers. We did get that grant, so over the next couple of months, we'll be getting the equipment and starting to put it to use. This is one of the items that came out of the police reform committee a couple of years back that we went through. The other is accreditation, which is a process we've been working through. And I think that process, I could be wrong on this, but I think that's going to come to fruition in the middle of the summer. And hopefully we'll pass on that. I got a couple of questions for the board. One, I had sent you an email about benches and making memorial benches. So the town has always, the maintenance department, we put together these benches. They used to be the concrete, but the concrete form is no longer available. So we went to an all-wood bench. Several people have come to me expressing an interest in sponsoring a bench and getting a small plaque in somebody's name. Does the board have any?
Yeah, nothing to get, but I was going to call you today because I saw it. I guess I'm thinking it through. And my question is, we may have a finite number of benches and 1 million people that want to be memorialized.
I would say first come, first serve, and
do we know how many benches we're going to have? Like, we may put some benches out now, and then maybe in 5 years put some more benches out. So maybe something where we don't even know how many benches we're going to have eventually.
True.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't gotten that many, maybe a half dozen. If we open this up, the possibility is there that we get more.
Yeah, and might it be that somebody could donate a bench even if they're not going to memorialize it?
Again, it's up to the board to make a decision.
I know that we had discussed this about memorial trees, and it was thought that it might not be a good idea to do specific trees that people ask for specific people.
I thought we were going to do that.
But we did, and we have this thing up on the website
That
that says
collecting,
that people want to donate.
Yes, but we would choose the people that we memorialize.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. The town.
Right.
But not that we would accept somebody's money and let them know that in fact we were going to give them a bench on, say, as demand basis.
Well, we could do it that way, or we could set it up where the board approves each one.
I mean, I do sort of feel like what we're asking is the same question, like for benches as for trees. I would hate for somebody to plunk down their $5,000 and it'd be for Beelzebub. And then we decide that, well, we've said that we're going to do this, and so I do believe that we need a process that says that if you would like to donate for a memorial bench, that you can nominate somebody who then from that list, when we are putting a new bench in, the town would select to do that.
The town board should approve. We shouldn't just be taking money and without approving it first.
But I mean, on a first come, first served basis, I don't think is a good idea. I think that it should be that we put out a call, that we ask for people to submit names, and that it's not necessarily then just people who can afford to pay for a memorial bench.
Right.
I think that, there are certainly people who would like to give a bench for, say, John Simon, and they might not have the money to do that. They might collect money from people to do that. I think we should come up with a process if this is something that we agree we're going to look at.
So let's get step back. I agree with the process. We should have one in place. So I'm hearing that you're open to the idea as long as there's some process.
As long as there's a process that covers both benches and trees and could expand to other things as well.
Okay, okay, all right,
I would be okay with that.
okay.
Yeah,
you
I'm
wanna-
okay with
Okay, so I'll contact these folks and say that the town board over the next couple of weeks to a month is gonna work on a process, but that we're open to the idea of these benches and they should stay two. Okay.
And you might want to reference the tree committee page that talks about trees, because could perhaps build off of what's there.
Okay. Another email that I sent was with regard to the tennis court rental. I don't have the email in front of me, but I believe it's the general manager of the tennis courts over there on Xenasau Hill Road. He runs a clinic for young children. Their court doesn't open until late April. He wants to start the clinic in April and run it into April, May, and into June. Wanted to know if we would be willing to rent the courts. He's looking to have access to them. It's actually going to be 4 days a week, but he would need to have the fifth day, Friday, as a rain day, a makeup day, and he's looking to rent them from 4 to 6. Is this something you want to consider?
Well,
It is for youth. He will be making money, so we would have some fee, but we could dedicate that fee back into court maintenance.
And I had a question before I answer that question, and that is, there was some talk about making one court of, about doing something about pickleball.
This could help pay for that.
Well, right, so, and I know that my answer was, I would be okay with taking one court, painting pickleball lines, don't put up pickleball nets, let people bring their own nets. Then you would have the ability for 2 pickleball courts. And then my question would be, if we painted a court, are we giving this clinic the pickleball, the part that could be the pickleball or tennis, or giving them the other court, which doesn't happen to using lines?
Those are details we could work out. And actually, though, I would take it one step further. I think the town should invest in the nets. We can have them,
Maybe even at the youth centers, people go get them.
or a locked bin right there that we could give people combo to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the nets are there and people are pulling them down, so, but
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so and I can pull the email up. It was an email from you anyway.
So
There we
you're
go.
open to the idea.
Well, I'm open to the idea. I guess when I'm curious, yeah, and he's doing from 4 to 6. I'm open to trying it once.
Mhm.
And if the town people are upset because there's a line for the tennis courts and they can't get on because this is being done, then we don't have to do it again. I'm open to trying it.
So
once
when you
and
say
see.
once, you mean,
I think for the season,
For
we
the
would be
season,
making
okay,
a commitment for the season, based on feedback, we may never do it again, but if it's not causing a problem.
and that's something he and I did discuss, that this, if we did it, it would most likely be
Yeah.
on a
Because
trial
because I
basis.
haven't been to the tennis courts lately in the summer to know, is there a line or no line? Are they used at all? Is there a line? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know
that.
either.
So-
I don't have the impression that they're under extreme use.
Okay, I'm okay with giving it a go for a season.
Okay,
Wait, no, we're working on that too.
My concern with this is that we would be renting our town property to people who are making a profit from it, and it's excluding townspeople from using it during these particular hours.
Mhm.
And those particular hours are from 4 to 6 during what months?
April, I think it's April, May, and just into June.
April, May, and part of June.
Second week of April until early June, so it's about 2 months.
It's
Second
just
week of
a
April
little
until
over
early
2
June.
months.
So I think that what we could learn from is how we do this with the summer rec program. While we don't rent to a private company, we do restrict the use of the public space for only the summer rec kids. And that is certainly a safety issue, and it's one that I completely agree with. I would say that the thing that I learned was that signage was critical, because there were townspeople and visitors who wanted to access those fields during those times and were unwilling to accept a counselor's suggestion that they should leave the field. I think that if we choose to do this, we need to have proper signage that basically says, you know, the town of Woodstock has, you know, rented these public facilities, you know, from this date to this date, and they are not available from this time to this time. At all other times, please feel free to use them so that people know specifically and can plan their tennis and or pickleball accordingly. I don't think that I want to put that onus on a tennis. But he shows up and tries to kick off somebody from the courts. And then we have, you know, a round robin of argument. So I would be open to the suggestion if we could find a way in which everybody knew that this was happening and that it was very, very easily understood by both the people who are using the courts and the people who were renting the courts. So that would probably be a temporary sign that would be at the courts so that people could know at all times that this was going to take place. And possibly also putting it on the website.
So, well, and Facebook. The other thing we can do is that in the summer, residents are required, we keep the tennis courts open even during camp, but the residents are required to get a ID card. And I believe the town clerk probably has that list, so we could even go and contact those people and just give them a heads up. So I'll look into that. I'll try and flesh out the details a little bit more and I'll get back to you. But basically, it sounds like we're open to the idea of giving this a try. You know, what I would point out, this is for the youth. There's no guarantee they're all going to be Woodstock kids, but, you know, my guess is that there's going to be more Woodstock kids than other.
It is a Woodstock port that they're gonna go to when
Exactly.
they open.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's nice to offer services to kids in the surrounding area.
absolutely.
Just brings towns together. So
And you know what, I mean, that's what the great thing about our summer camp. We get a lot of kids from out of town. Okay, so I'll be back to you with more details. Another quick announcement, just want to remind you guys that I sent you an agreement that Archtop Fiber is asking us to consider. A number of other towns, I think Olive signed theirs last night. I think they were going to move forward with it. Ulster has moved forward with it. Saugus has moved forward with it. For those who don't know, we have another cable company that's going to be coming into the area. They're by the end of the year, they will have started to lay cable. I want to say it's about a 4-county area. I don't know if it's 4 solid counties, but it's at least part of Ulster, part of Greene, Columbia, and Dutchess, I believe. And so Spectrum's going to have a little bit of competition.
What's the name?
Archtop Fiber. So I am going to have a resolution about the agreement next week on the agenda, and a representative from Archtop will be available. If anybody has any reservations between now and then, get back to me.
I would love to sit down with the representative from Archtop, and I would also like to know how this would complement and or compete with the franchise agreement that we currently have.
We don't have one.
We don't have one.
No,
So,
that's why.
so
This is why they were so hell
so,
bent on
so,
getting us to sign it.
so at present, we do not have a franchise agreement with Spectrum.
No.
And Spectrum has not pursued a franchise
Oh,
agreement
yes.
renewal.
They have vigorously.
And have we sat down and told them that there is another suitor and asked them if they had a better offer for us?
Well, they don't, no, they've given us their best offer, and Archtop's offer is not any better. The only thing I will say about Archtop is they're going to come in, it's going to be greener because it uses far less electricity. It will be safer because during power outages, there's battery backup. So if we have an outage for 3 or 4 days, Eventually, the system might start to power down, but at least in the initial couple of days, there's going to be enough power that you can call emergency services and have communication. They're looking to bury most of the lines if they can get agreements with the various municipalities, including the state and the county. And I know that every supervisor I've talked to has suggested that we would go to bat for them with DOT, and we all want buried lines, which again makes the likelihood of an outage even less. So maybe what I'll do is see if the gentleman would come up prior to our meeting, and we could sit down with a quick executive. Well,
I would, yes.
actually,
I would be interested in having them come to the town board and.
well, he will be here next week.
But I would be interested before we make a decision, because I think that, you know, if we're going to be, in essence, changing the cable provider or asking people to have a new option, I want to make sure that people understand what it is, are aware of what they can do if they choose to,
Mhm.
and the person, you know, is given a full public airing.
Mhm. Well, keep in mind, they're going through, they're installing regardless. What this agreement will do is allow us to work with them to seek federal funds, because they're under the same requirements as Spectrum or any other cable companies. They're required to run wire anywhere there are, don't hold me to this, but I think it's 20 houses per mile. So if a road has 20 houses per mile, they have to by law run it. This is what we presently have with Spectrum, and we have almost 100% coverage in the town of Woodstock. So we're going to have the same, almost 100% coverage. What the agreement will do is allow us to partner with them, and they'll partner with all the other communities to go to the federal government, because there are federal dollars available to string wire where they're not legally required to. It's not going to help Woodstock as much, but it will help surrounding communities.
So if we in essence then sign this sort of is it a franchise agreement?
No.
If we sign this,
Sort of,
if
yeah.
we sign this agreement with them, then how does it affect the current coverage that people are receiving from Spectrum?
Doesn't.
It just gives people a choice.
It gives people.
But by signing the agreement, tell me again, what exactly is the agreement gonna, what are we agreeing to when the agreement is signed?
Well, I sent you all the agreement. You all have that, but basically it just says that we will partner with them to seek federal funding to string wire where they're not required to by law. And if they have the support of all the communities, the county as well, it builds their case for getting these dollars, which they're going to invest back in our community.
And then we will have competition from the standpoint, which is good for the consumer. Instead of having one monopoly, we would have, the consumers would have a
Right.
choice, Spectrum or the other.
It's going to be a faster service. It's going to be a more reliable, greener service. It will be more secure from weather events. And there was one
And
more.
is there any cost to the town if we sign the agreement?
No,
So we're just helping bring another choice. for
we're
shoppers.
saying we're going to partner with Woodstock in these applications. So they do all the application, they do the work.
Would one of the consequences be that Spectrum could decide that they no longer want to work in Woodstock?
They get a lot of money.
They could.
You think that they would just dump all their customers in Woodstock?
I can't imagine. I mean, again, that means they're gonna leave Saugerties, they're gonna leave Ulster County, because Ulster County has signed it. So,
I would be very interested in speaking to the representative to understand more fully exactly what it is that they.
well, again, that's why I brought this up. I want to know what everybody,
Well, I'm.
so he will be here next week at the meeting.
And what is the deadline?
No deadline.
To sign it, okay. I mean, more information is always a good thing.
Right.
So I'm totally fine with having them come
Okay.
and speak and,
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick resolution, and then I am going to bring Grace up. Be resolved to appoint Howard Keegan and Laura Warren to the Woodstock Housing Committee.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unless Marie Lane wanted that. Oh, Reggie's, I'm sorry, Reggie is the housing guy. Do
Hello, Reggie.
you want to second that, Reggie?
It's already voted.
Already voted.
What did he say?
I didn't hear him.
Oh,
So I just, my meeting note that I keep reminding people, I do check my phone during the meetings because I'm communicating with my secretary who's running the meeting, and periodically there are things going back and forth. So I'm not, I hope you don't find it being rude. With that, Grace, do you want to talk to a resolution?
Sure. Just some information for everybody. Going to be very brief because it's about reducing the speed limit in town. And I just want to say a few reasons why I think it's absolutely essential. You'll find on this chart from 2010 to 2021, fatalities, pedestrian fatalities from people that were struck, pedestrians that were struck, increased from 43,200 to 48,500 deaths. I mean, it's an astronomical increase. Most of these fatalities were related to speed. And nobody else can say this, but if someone is going 20 miles per hour, there's a 5% chance of a fatality. If someone is going 40 miles per hour, there's an 85% chance of a fatality. And if someone is going 30 miles per hour, which is our current speed limit in town, there's a 45% chance of a fatality, which is really, I mean, why do we want that? We don't. And what we have to do is to start reducing the speed limit. Also the deaths are primarily young children and people over 65. So given the demographics in this town, that's a really serious consideration. Recently, there was a state law passed that allowed municipalities to have control of their own speed limit, except for municipalities with 50,000 people or less. That's us.
Yeah, it's us.
Okay, so what we have to do is ask the DOT. Now, the DOT is not necessarily inclined to do that. So we really have to make sure that we're supportive and we give them some pressure to reduce the speed limit. So that's what I hope our resolution will be.
Recording in progress.
So Grace, and I noticed the resolution doesn't say
I added a little bit to
a
it.
proposed speed limit.
It does now.
It does now.
I didn't put a proposed speed limit, but
Okay.
all the
But the traffic
documentation is going through. So whereas improving our safety of our roadways is of critical importance, whereas vehicle speed increases both the likelihood of a crash as well as the severity of the crash. And whereas the New York State DOT SIMS crash statistics contain 973 reported crashes on Route 212 corridor between Blockman Lane and Schoolmaker Lane. This is Mill Hill Road and Tinker Street, with 296 injuries and 2 fatalities between the years of 2002 to 2021. And whereas there is a significant concentration of pedestrians on Mill Hill Road and the eastern end of Tinker Street, and whereas the sidewalk on the Mill Hill Road is in close proximity to the westbound lane of traffic, and whereas traffic engineers have fewer design options to increase safety on streets with higher speeds and higher speed limits, and whereas a reduced speed limit in this area would provide for greater safety for the community. Therefore, be it resolved, the Town of Woodstock Town Board requests the New York State DOT Department of Transportation conduct a speed study on Route 212 between Blockman Lane and Wittenberg Road. Be it further resolved, the Town of Woodstock Town Board requests the DOT reduce the speed in this section of the road.
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion. I just want to thank you very much for bringing this forward. I greatly appreciate it. As you may know, my wife was killed by an out-of-control driver. She was a pedestrian. She was standing next to her car. It was noon. She was in a street much like Tinker Street, but not here. This is a needed improvement to our town's quality of life. We should look at not just this area, we should look at reducing speeds in other areas as well. I'll be supporting this resolution, but I would urge you to look at all of the streets and all of the roads within Woodstock and make a decision or determination as to whether or not they can have reduced speeds as well. My children were affected by this in a terrible way. And so I applaud the work that you're doing. I know that it is the number one thing that people discussed when discussing the Complete Streets Committee, that it was their top priority. And it certainly is something that I am completely grateful for. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and well said, Bennett. Thank you.
And I just want to let you know that the Complete Streets Committee is in fact going to consider every road in this town in what we're doing. And we participated in a webinar today that is instructive about how to assess danger at any point and to decide what the speed limit should be in particular places.
Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, and thank you in the Complete Streets Committee, Grace.
I should have mentioned earlier on our Woodstock pollinator presentation. The presenter had a medical emergency and was unavailable. So they asked me to pull that off, and we're going to plan to bring that back on March 14th.
So we're gonna wait to vote on it.
They asked that we
Well, I have seen a preview of the presentation. It's very good and very educational, so that's fine.
Be it resolved to hire Derek Orlinsky as part-time dispatcher at a rate of $24.21 effective February 14th,
Second.
2023, 14. Yeah, changed it. Bennett, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the town of Woodstock has received funding from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan, whereas the town must follow certain prescribed guidelines with regard to the spending of those funds, and whereas the town is committed to provide funding for housing-related projects and programs, and whereas a lack of all types of affordable housing is a major issue in the town of Woodstock, therefore be it resolved. One, the town commits a sum of $175,000 for affordable ADU loan program for the purposes of funding housing upgrades to create affordable rental units and home share opportunities. Two, the town board works with the Woodstock Housing Alliance to develop guidelines and implementation of the loan program. Three, the town board commits a sum of $199,000 for engineering fees for the development project on town-owned property. For the town board work with the housing committee to develop an RFP for said developments.
Second, for the
Well-
purpose of discussion.
Discuss.
So I think that I had asked if these two could be divided into two separate votes, and I did not hear back from you on
So
that.
is there any particular reason?
Yes, I am fully in favor of committing $199,000 for engineering fees for the development project on town-owned property and working with the housing committee to develop the RFP for that. I am absolutely 100% certain that this is necessary for us to look at all of our town projects and our town properties for affordable housing. I am also for a community land trust. And I am for and have been a Woodstock Housing Alliance supporter. But I believe that this is self-dealing, that 3 members of the Woodstock Housing Alliance actually wrote the proposed code changes, and they are now going to benefit from the $175,000 that is in this. I understand the passion that these housing advocates have, but I cannot, in good consciousness, allow self-dealing to be part of this. I wish that we could put these 2 things apart, because I believe the Woodstock Housing Alliance needs to restructure itself in order to receive these funds. While the Woodstock Housing Alliance became an entity in 2021, members of the Woodstock Housing Alliance continued to write the Housing Oversight Task Force proposed codes, the codes that they are going to be taking advantage of. And now I do not believe they should be given $175,000 after having written the very codes that they are going to take advantage of. For me, it is self-dealing, and I have asked both Jeff Collins, and I actually mentioned this to Kurt Ritchie, and I have been told from Jeff that this is not something that they were going to consider. So I would rather vote for one and not vote for the other. That's
Okay.
why I
So I'm
asked.
going to amend the resolution. No, I'm going to offer both resolutions. I'm offering both resolutions. I'm going to amend the first one to include parts 3 and 4, which are the $199,000 and the RFP. Now the second on the change.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'm going to offer the first part of the resolution, which is to commit the sum of $175,000. What?
We do the 199.
We just
We
did.
just
I
did
know,
it.
why don't you, but you.
I just
you
amended
said
it.
to amend it to separate, but we didn't actually vote on the 199.
All in favor of the
Well, you need a
199?
primary and a second for it.
Yeah, all
You
in
made it.
favor of,
Who seconded? The change to separate the agenda, we approved that.
yes, now I'm making a motion
To,
on the
on the
resolution.
199.
Yes,
Do you want a second to 199?
Yes, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now I offer resolution to commit the 175 and the Housing Alliance guidelines.
I'll second it for purpose of discussion.
Okay,
So what I'd like to weigh in on, and I hear what you're saying, Ben, and technically speaking, everything you said, technically speaking, you got, 2 people on the Housing Alliance are also on the Housing Oversight Task Force. A couple of points that I want to make, because I have also been on the Housing Task Force in a year and a half. I'm not sure if it's been 2 years, but it's been probably a year and a half. I've lost track a little bit. But we spent a lot of time together, and I have never gotten any sense at all that anybody is self-serving on that board. Everybody is trying to find a solution for Woodstock to find ways to make it easier to get housing, so that if we increase supply of housing, it's the old supply demand chart, right? If you increase the supply, the prices go down. If you increase supply, there's more availability. And the people who are writing that code, the 2 that you mentioned, are not voting on the code. That code will go to the town board, and it is the town board who will vote that code in. So the people that you're referring to do not have any vote at all on that law getting passed. It is the 5 of us who will ultimately vote on that. So I do want to say that. I do want to say as we've heard the Housing Committee come speak to us, we've heard all the we've heard all the need. We've heard all the need of affordable housing. We've heard all the challenges. One thing I personally loved about what the Housing Committee has brought to us is the array of solutions. It's not just here's one solution, but there's a laundry list of, right, not huge list. I mean, we have there are key focus areas, and the answer to solving the housing crisis is not one thing. We got to update the zoning law. Having some different funding for these different things is going to help. Having more ADUs is going to help. That's what the law is going to provide. Giving people the ability to build an ADU is going to help. I don't know whether either of the people you mentioned is even going to build an ADU on their property. They're trying to provide housing for Woodstock, And I've never heard either of them talk at all about building an ADU on their property. So when you say they're gonna benefit, they'd only benefit if they were doing an ADU and getting these low interest loans that this $175,000 brings them. I don't think they're gonna be doing ADUs on their property, and I don't think they're gonna be getting this loan money. They're just, I am so grateful for the whole housing committee and everything, and the Housing Oversight Task Force, we're all working together, because solving the housing crisis is gonna need a lot of different solutions. And by voting against this, you'll be removing one of the solutions.
Anybody else?
I
I'll just say quickly, I agree with really everything Laura just had to say. And to say the majority of the folks that have done this work are homeowners. So to imply that it's self-serving in some way, I find it insulting, even though I'm not the person who's been part of this work. It's an insult, in my opinion. I'm insulted for them because they have done this work in earnest with nothing but a sincere desire to provide housing for the community in this town. And so I'm not going to get into a back and forth, but I just want to say, I certainly believe Kirk Ritchie has done an excellent job in his service to this town and has an excellent track record. I have yet to find someone to say otherwise. And again, as Laura said, we will, as a board, will be voting on these things. So it's not like they get this money and, you know, when the phrase self-dealing comes up, they're not taking this money and putting it in their pockets. The board will have approval over this. And so I just wanted to share that. And unless I'm ready to vote, whatever the rest of the board is.
Melanie, did you?
Well, I want to give Bennett the opportunity to.
No,
Did
I
you
went
wanna
to you
reply?
first. Do you have?
Well, I mean, we haven't even approved the zoning changes, so why would we, I mean, that's kind of like
This
doing
has
it
nothing.
backwards.
This has
So
nothing.
wouldn't we want to
There-
wait until we complete all the zoning changes?
No,
because-
before
because
granting
the-
the money?
People can do ADUs today.
Yeah,
We're
they're allowed.
increasing, the housing code, if it gets passed, will say somebody can have a maximum of 2 ADUs on the property, whereas today they can have a maximum of 1. But people aren't building ADUs all over the place. But if more people had ADUs, you might get some more long-term housing. So there are ADUs today that people could build. If the code gets passed as is, then people would be able to get to do 2 ADUs, but there isn't an ADU ability in the code today.
And
I think that this is about governance. And I don't believe that people who are writing proposed code changes should be creating entities that take advantage of those proposed code changes. It is not self-serving, it is self-dealing. And that is why I will be voting no.
okay. All in favor?
Maria Elena, which way are you going?
No.
No. Okay,
No.
thank you. Kirk, Jeff, my sincere apologies. And thank you for everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
Our heart is going into this,
I know it has.
and everybody has been as down the road, for the community. I know I'm speaking out of turn, but this is personal for me because of all the effort that's gone into this as one of the leaders of this effort. And I recognize your concern, Bennett. Having the opportunity to talk about it, they are not writing the code. This is a committee of 7 people. We are working with a professional. You have to understand the process and the way that people are presenting themselves, and as part of this process is with integrity. And I feel the need to.
And it's been a marathon.
It
This
has
housing
been.
oversight task force has been a marathon. The housing committee has been a marathon. You guys have been going with the housing committee longer than the housing oversight task force. And it's been a marathon, and I am so pleased with the progress. I mean, the really huge initiatives that you're building and beginning, there was a lot of vision went into that, a lot of hard work into that. It's innovative, and it can really make a difference. And I certainly, I thank everything that you and Kirk do on the Housing Oversight Task Force to lead it, and the committee, but also the Housing Committee has really worked hard and has really been making great strides. And it's funny how it takes a little while to really make a difference, but you guys in the 4 years are really making a difference.
And we recognize also the town board is the leader, is the decision-making body in all of this.
Thank you. We have publicly heard. I'm not going to take any more from the public. I have two more resolutions. Be it resolved upon receipt of completed Family Medical Leave Act form to approve a paid unpaid leave of absence for Shay Cox effective February 1st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And whereas it was determined by the Woodstock Water Sewer Superintendent, not all the water at 38 Orchard Lane, account numbers 172/179, entered into the wastewater collection system, but rather much of it onto the ground. Therefore, be it resolved to credit back $1,500 of sewer charge for the account number 172/179, and be further resolved to charge the full amount for the water usage. Be it further resolved, this resolution does not excuse the costs of penalties and re-levy by the county.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Could you explain what this is related to?
Yes, so the homeowners at 38 Orchard Lane, and this goes back a year, had a leak sometime in the winter. Their heating pipes broke and flooded the house and caused the water to run and run and run and run. And we do this periodically. So the meter, it's 1 meter, it reads the water going into the building. So what happened was that water didn't actually go into the sewer. Larry confirmed that yes, they did have a leak. So what we do is there's a couple of different ways, but sometimes we'll go back and look at the last 4 quarters. Here, we've adjusted it a little bit more because we're going back a year and we've had some additional expenses. But their sewer bill for that month was about $2,100 plus some penalties. Their normal over the 4 quarters before that averaged about $26. So it's a difference between the 26 and 2,100. So usually what we do when we have proof that there's an issue there and they have supplied the repair bills from the plumber, we will credit back because we did not have that expense in the sewer. We do charge them the full amount for the water because we did pump the water. In this case, she failed to pay the bill. She did bring this up to Larry, but never followed through on getting us to deal with it. So when you don't pay your water sewer bill, it gets re-levied to the county and they put it on your tax bill. So and now she still hasn't paid it. So she's into the penalty phase and she's into interest phase. So
Yeah, because we only have 1 meter. I guess you got that from what Bill said.
Yeah.
There's only 1 meter. Our billing system assumes that if water came into your house, it assumes it went out the sewer. And this is a case where the water didn't go out the sewer, so they shouldn't have to pay the sewer part of the bill because it didn't go out the sewer.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Melanie, do you have any names for publicly heard? You can text me if you want.
Susan Goldman.
Okay, to Susan. Okay, so I've got my 5 names. Lisa?
Where should I go?
Come right up here.
Sorry. Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
let me-
I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
2 minutes.
I'm Lisa Polish. My family has owned a house in Woodstock for 45 years, and I represent the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association. Tonight, we are asking the town of Woodstock to offer provisional permits to a small number of pre-existing STR operators while the town works to craft updated legislation that addresses the needs of the community. Certain homeowners have been unfairly excluded from the STR permitting process and deserve access to permits to operate their STRs legally while the town continues the very important and time-consuming work of studying STRs and updating the law. So although we support the effort to create well-researched and considered regulations, it's been more than 2 years that most of us have been forced to stop renting out our homes, 9 months since the 9-month moratorium ended, and it's unsustainable for us to wait for an indeterminate number of additional years until legislation is finalized. So we are
asking the town respectfully to take action on this petition in the next 14 days. The people on this short list were operating their residence as an STR prior to the 2019 legislation. They are not converting an annual rental into a short-term rental, and their property is not considered long-term affordable housing. So I have this petition. I'm going to give you each a copy. Don't expect you to do anything with it now, but we're hoping that next week we can pass this and move on. And I also just want to add, with all this conversation about money for in upgrading ADUs, there are ADUs right now that are STRs that could be converted into long-term rentals. So some money could be allocated to providing incentives for people who already have ADUs that could be used to convert them.
Thank you, Lisa. You emailed that to me
I did.
this afternoon. Did you send it? I didn't notice.
Yes.
Did you send it to everybody?
I did.
Okay, good. So we all have it.
Yes, so Reggie should have this. in his
Okay.
email.
So
Thank you.
before I go to the next, Michael, you're next. But before
Thank you.
I go to, I just, another point that I meant to bring up. So at our last meeting, I did say to the board that I would be polling you quickly to get a sense of how you might want to move forward with the STR, the recommendations and whatnot. If nobody else has a better idea, then I'm going to call, I'm going to put it on the agenda for next Tuesday to start the discussion in earnest with the different parties.
I may honestly have some feedback, and if I do, I'll email it to you.
Okay,
But I think next week is a good time to discuss it.
so it will be on the agenda for discussion next week,
Thank you.
as well as, you know, this can be part of the discussion. Let me set the clock, Michael. Go. And I'm gonna, when I tap, that means you got 10 seconds.
Turn it to
Thank you.
okay.
Go.
Michael Henry with the Woodstock STR Association, homeowner and member of the community since 2004 with my wife and kids. Have been renting as a short-term rental since 2008. Speaking up in support of this petition, it's for a small group of long-term, people who are renting before the cap, who have fallen through the cracks. Most people didn't get notice, even though many of them were with Ulster County. These properties are not candidates for long-term affordable rental. Most of them just would not be affordable. And the thing is, we appreciate the work that the Housing Committee has been doing. We think it's a great thing. I think Woodstock should have a model STR law with lots of data. The email from the other day said that we don't have data. It's been a marathon. It's been 2 marathons. We can't hold on to our houses. I want to move here full time. I want to stay a part of this community. And many of our members feel the same way. Meantime, while we've been waiting for years and years, we're watching brand new homeowner investors, people who have bought in the last couple of years after the cap, getting permits. It doesn't make any sense. The Woodstock Golf Course has a non-owner occupied STR permit. I don't know what that's about. So while this small group of people who have been members of the community for a long time are being denied the chance to stay in the community, new permits are being given out. It doesn't make any sense. And again, we'd also like in the future to be included in the in the Housing Committee or the STR task force, because we think we do have valuable information and real life experience of how the STR economy works and how we can contribute to it.
Thank you, Michael. You made it.
I did. I think it turned into a-
Sarah? You didn't turn into a Papa Smalls now. We already have a list.
I understand. I'm Sarah.
Okay. When I tap, 10 seconds.
Okay,
All right, Sarah.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the Home Share Program. I am hoping to work with the Home Share Program and would benefit by the funding that would be available through the loan possibility.
Excellent.
And I was really disappointed to hear that it didn't go through
It
because.
did. It passed.
Oh, it did pass.
It passed.
3-2.
3-2, it
But
passed.
Oh, I didn't know whether that
Three
was.
to two.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, then
Yes.
I'm grateful because
You're
I
welcome.
really will be, because I mean, there are many costs involved as I address the possibilities of sharing my home with somebody, one of them being, how do I create privacy? I've been an Airbnb person for And I stopped that 4 years ago because I wanted to be part of the home share process. So I just, well, thank you.
Excellent. Good luck.
You'll hear from me.
Anna?
I yield to Heather Cross.
You're Heather?
I'm not Heather. She's, I think, on the.
Okay. Heather? Are you on, Heather?
Nope.
Susan, are you on?
Susan Goldman, that was Susan Goldman.
I'm here. I am
Okay,
here.
go ahead, Susan. I'll tap when you have 10 seconds.
Okay, thanks. First of all, thank you to the board for passing these two resolutions. The committee has worked long and hard, as you have all pointed out, both in researching and choosing these strategies. So we are gratified. It's been, as far as I can recall, about 20 years that we've been trying to bring a community land trust to this town. And I think it's really amazing and fortunate that we have a small group of people who have stepped up with the support of the Housing Committee, but certainly on their own with their own skills and resources to make a community land trust for Woodstock, which is the Woodstock Housing Alliance. And this is a key, a core resource that any community needs in order to not only develop affordable housing, but to keep it affordable forever. A developer gets federal funds, it might be affordable for 30 years or 50 years. A land trust holds it in perpetuity. So this is no small concept. And to hear it denigrated the way it has been is upsetting. We're very fortunate. Now, you know, the fact that the town decided to move forward with the zoning revisions and the Housing Alliance came forward at the same time, you know, the Housing Committee is delighted because these were our three core strategies and we're moving forward on them. But somehow they're being turned into something evil and self-dealing. And I find it really insulting and not productive. It shows a certain level of lack of information on the part of Bennett and Maria Elena. And I also want to point out that in January, when we made our report to the town, our annual report, that Bennett said that he would submit his questions because he had questions about the ARP funds and the proposals that the committee supported, that he would send an email the next day. Finally, last week, the end of last week, we got an email with one quick pro forma question with asking for the IRS documents for the Housing Alliance. We've had these proposals out since August, at least. They've been under discussion for the year before.
Susan, I'm going to have to cut you off there, but
You
thank you.
did. I was so fascinating that you forgot to cut me off. Well, that's what I have to say, that there was plenty of time for questions and discussion and clarification, and we've heard nothing and had no questions and no visit, no taking us up on offers to talk.
Okay. Is, I'm sorry,
Heather.
Heather.
Heather Cross.
She's on mute now.
Yeah.
She said she's having problems with her microphone.
So is she going to talk about the STR too?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to let this
Okay.
young person. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
You can give me one.
Okay,
Since I'm late addition. Thank you.
okay.
I just wanted to, I know a lot of people have comment, I'm discussing the 175,000. There is a dire need. My mother's Beverly Harris, she's also listening. We currently provide affordable housing in this town and struggle in some ways. She's owned the house since '86. She's been a permanent resident since 2008. I intend to make my life here for the rest of my life, I hope. We need to be able to help survive, and we want this community to survive. And for that to happen, people have R&R, I, through the grapevine, heard shut down because people can't find housing. We don't have help to help things run. How are you gonna have restaurants or shops if you don't have people to take care of them? We need to have that available. The 175, okay, so if it helps 2 or 3 people, it sounds like it's not even gonna help them. But if it does help them, is it worth shortchanging the however many other people it would benefit our community with? Just to make that point, I really urge you to think about the cost and benefit for what that's going to be, because there are people who desperately would like to assist, and this money will help them do so.
Good. Well,
Thank you.
it's there. Thank you.
I know, well, it's really important.
Thank you.
How it goes forward.
With that, I'm going to move
Well, I think we
to,
have somebody else.
oh, 5. We're done. Sorry.
Excuse me, I'm just speaking for a second. I'm speaking ad hoc. I'm Susan Manuel. I'm on the Woodstock Housing Alliance. Is it okay to speak?
I'll give you 1 minute. It's
60 seconds.
okay. Go.
I'm on the Woodstock Housing Alliance board, and I just have to say thank you for the vote, but the remarks you made are so out of line. This person and these people have worked for years on housing in Woodstock. If I don't want your $10,000 or your $100,000, I don't think he does either. And I think that the only solution for this town is if the board works together and if we all work together. So let's have a positive approach to housing. If you think that the wall between governance, between voting and law writing and implementation is too thin, that's a good point. Let's explore that. Don't insult the people that have spent years working on this. That's all I'm going to say. And thanks very much. And I look forward to
Thank
working
you.
with all of you.
I look forward to working with you too, Susan. With that, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Bert, thank you. Jeff. Thank you.